is alone. Yet, he is not alone. At his side, box upon box of musty old recordings. Records that should never have been recorded.
Wind up, George. Wind up, George.
Tapes that were not to be heard by you. Commercials from a time long ago. The moody, dusty recordings that until now were not to be found. This is the everyday life of George Gimarc.
George Gimarc here on the Lost Tapes. Welcome. Tonight we're talking with Alan Dean from the BBC, and Alan is talking with me from the Lost Tapes, and we're kind of doing this joint hookup here between England and Texas. There's a lot of connections that way, folks. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much, George.
And you and I have this thing where we have both picked up some incredible recordings, home recording discs. And I'm going to play some of my favorites, and you get to play some of yours, too.
Great, I'll have a go.
Now, you've got a presentation happening on the BBC, and for those of us that are listening on shortwave, will we be able to hear it?
I'm afraid you won't. If you're sitting with your transistor radio in the kitchen while you're washing up, hoping to hear it in Texas,
Fat
too
chance.
far, too far.
Yep.
Unless you have a satellite, your own personal satellite, not satellite dish, but the whole thing, you might be able to pick it up.
We actually do have a Lost Tapes satellite, but we couldn't really afford a very good orbit, so it circles the Earth. It's about the size of a basketball covered in aluminum foil, and it circles the Earth at about 25 feet in altitude, so it's not very good.
I thought you would say it circles the world at 78 RPM.
Yes, you've caught me now. Into the stacks of records we go.
I just want to muse a bit about finding records, because the sort of material we're going to be talking about in the program, as I said, a lot of the discs have been found by collectors and like yourself, because they're interested in hunting down records. Can we sort of kind of muse about this kind of the whole concept of the hunt for items and looking for these things and the quest for sound?
Well, I have to say this, that if you took a group of 100 collectors, you might not find one in that group of 100 who actually would pick these things up and give them the time of day. The average collector is looking for music. They're not looking for the stuff of life, the sort of the little two-minute biography, on wax. That doesn't interest them. There's no price guide for that. There's really been no books written about that. It's a fairly under-researched field. And it takes a sense of, you almost have to have another specialty. You have to have a subspecialty, and that is history. Because a lot of these, and I'm sure you found this when you're going through them, is that when you listen to these things and you don't have the kindness of the operator to write a date on it, you have to listen to what they're talking about or where they are and try to work it out. And then once you know the matrix that this thing is captured in, it makes a lot more sense.
I think you're absolutely right. The world we're talking about is outside the mentality of most record collectors. And I would include myself as a record collector as well.
Finding those gems is what keeps me on the hunt, and looking under people's cabinets and in the back of a bookcase, and sometimes in the trash can.
Tell me about those gems.
One of them was a recording of a group called the Southern Wonders. And it's an 8-inch disc that was made on an RCA Victor blank, and it's a style of a blank that is probably from around 1941, 1943, somewhere right in that time period. The Southern Wonders were a gospel group. They were a Southern gospel group, and they had quite a bit of a career. This disc apparently was an audition or a gift to a Mr. Spradley. And at the front of the recording, you actually hear a member of the group dedicate the recording by the Southern Wonders to Mr. Spradley.
I'm the Southern Wonders wanted to make this dedication to Mr. Spradley. Song entitled "To Keep Him Out of Heaven." I'm going to see my trouble. I'm going to meet my mother. I have found
The second of the remarkable discs was a little 5-inch record, yellow cardboard record, whose surface was, the play surface resembled that of an alligator handbag. It had not aged very well. And the only words written on the face of this disc were Low Down Blues. On the other side, it said Tennessee Shuffle. I put it on, and what came out of the recording was a pair of black musicians on acoustic guitars, one of them singing the blues on the Low Down Blues side. That it sounded typical of a recording of somebody like Brownie McGee in 1938 or 1940. Very rural, very American, very Southern, and in this case, very unknown. I played the record for many, many people. Nobody's been able to identify the musician. They say it could be a lot of different people, or it could be somebody who never made it. But this might have been their only chance at a recording. They just happened to be at somebody's house who had a home recording setup, and they paid the 20 cents for the little cardboard blank, and this was the record which preserved their musical career for the generations. And now 60 years later, this is their voice echoing through the years.
Well, I'm leaving in the morning. I ain't got nowhere to go. Yes, I'm leaving in the morning. I ain't got nowhere to go. Well, the woman I've been loving for 20 years, but said she don't want me no more. I've got holes in my pocket. I got patches on my back. I got holes in my pockets, buddy. I got patches on my back. I'm behind in my room, and the landlady wants it in advance. Well, I don't mind leaving, but I've got to be gone so long. Yes, I don't mind leaving, but I've got to be gone so long. They have accused me of murder, and I ain't done nothing wrong. Take a little while.
Great stuff. I have to slip in here and say we've got to take a break. We'll be back with more on the Lost Tapes with Alan Dean from the BBC right after this.
George Gimarc on the Lost Tapes.
Harold, what's that new metal post in the backyard?
Well, that's for my new bird feeder. I'm going to feed Dryocarpus pileatus.
Well, Harold, I believe we can call that one Frida's Birdus. You've hit the buried power line and made the neighborhood's first bird zapper. Did you call Tess before you dug the...
Well, I'm leaving in the morning. I ain't got nowhere to go. Yes,
It's the Lost Tapes, and we're talking about home recording discs. And that's one of those little blues recordings. That is just one of the best things that I've found in years.
Well, the woman I've been loving for 20 years, buddy.
George, using your knowledge and your picture of that time in the southern states, this unknown duo, what would have happened? How would they have made this record? How do you think, if we can try kind of go back and take the time machine, enter the Twilight Zone and find out how these guys would have actually made this record? What would they have done? How would they have gone about it?
The thing that struck me as being really remarkable immediately was that it was a black performer on a home recording disc. That's really unusual in itself, because generally in England, I gather you had the coin-operated booths were pretty much, they were all over the place. They weren't really in the U.S. The majority of the home recordings in the U.S. were done in people's homes. If you had the money, you would buy a rather high-end radio that would incorporate a phonograph, a radio, which was probably not only had AM but also had shortwave, and it would have a disc recording system as well, which was kind of a double tone arm, one for playing back the records and one for recording them. So the majority of the home recordio discs were done by people who were either upper middle class or better. So the chances of this black duo, who sound very much like what you would hear at a roadhouse or playing in the front of a barbecue joint, the chances of them getting into a situation where they could make a recording like this was extraordinary. These just don't turn up. I mean, in the world of recordio discs that I've been going through for 25 years, I have only found a really good black performance like this on, I think, 4 or 5 occasions.
Fascinating. Absolutely amazing. I wonder, was there a coin-operated machine around? Did they rehearse? Was it a spontaneous performance? Who? What? How?
Yeah, it was not a disc from a coin-operated machine. It was definitely a home machine. And it was the cheapest of blanks, the more expensive metal with a bit of acetate over the top. And this was a piece of yellow cardboard about the thickness of an album jacket with a lamination of acetate over the top. And a very fragile sort of record. You could actually probably curl the record into a tube and touch it end to end and then straighten it out and it would still play.
Little did they know that we'd be listening, as you say, to those voices after all these years. It's that anonymity, the fact that these people have left their mark within the grooves of a record, that are so anonymous, and for this record just to be found by chance. It's a 1 in a million.
It probably is.
Yeah, incredible. What is the difference, do you think, then, perhaps, when you hear a recording like this, as opposed to the slightly more professional recordings you would have got during the 30s and 40s of blues musicians? What makes this type of record special as well? Obviously, the performance itself, the feel of the sound of the performance, is that also unique to this type of recording?
I like that home recordings are pretty much please yourself sort of recordings. They're made for the smallest of audiences. Frequently, these home recording discs are made for an audience of 1. They're directed at one other person. And if somebody else hears it, that's neither here nor there. In the case of these musicians doing the lowdown blues, normally these guys would probably be playing in the front of a barbecue joint or at a roadhouse or what have you. In this case, they were captured doing what they do without any sense of trying to be commercial, of trying to impress, trying to sway somebody's opinion so that they could further their career. This is just catching them in a candid snapshot of what they did. And I find that really attractive because in so many recordings, people are putting on their best face with all their makeup and tap dancing as fast as they can. And not in the case like this.
Yeah. back in. That's what I'm talking about. Shuffling. Yeah. I used to play a long time ago. That's what I'm talking about. I like that. Well, all right there. Get it.
Well, we got to take a short break and do some spots. We'll be back with more home recording discs on the Lost Tapes right after this.
George Gimarc, Lost Tapes.
Every doggone time I fall in love, I get a shoving around every time.
It's George Gimarc on the Lost Tapes, along with Alan Dean from the BBC. We're talking about home recordio discs, home recordings on those little bits of plastic and paper. And I got to tell you, Alan, you know, I think that these home recording discs are sometimes almost as important as the hit records of the day.
I agree with you. I think absolutely. I'm fascinated by a set of recordings that you sent me that were recorded off radio during the Second World War. The quality is amazing. So, you know, obviously I'd love to know about how you came across these discs and what you did to make them sound so remarkable.
I've got quite a few of the discs sitting in front of me right now. The collection of these things really started about 10 years ago when I was in a really, really junky record store in Los Angeles. And I asked the guy, he had, you know, all the standard rare stuff. And I was poking around looking for something a little more unusual. I said, you got any, you know, really odd stuff, really unusual records? Maybe you don't even know what they are. And he says, oh, we got a box in the other day that's probably just your sort of thing. And he pulls out a box that was about a foot deep, and it was filled with home recording discs. The majority of the discs were recordings of horse races. Somebody was a very big fan of the horse races, and I hope they spent their money on making these recordings and not at the track. But there were quite a few other discs that were in these little, I've got these little books that say personal recordings, and they're filled with 6-inch discs that are, most of them are made by the Motorola company, who manufactured some of these radio recorders. And the discs would just be labeled things like, this one just says News, Sicily, June 11th, 1943. This one says, on the other side it says Aunt Mabel. This one, News, December 17th, 1943. This one just says Drew Pearson. Invasion News. And this one just says Churchill. There's no date whatsoever. And I thought, oh, it's interesting. This is recordings right off the radio, because it didn't take much to turn the switch, and all of a sudden your little phonograph thing, instead of recording off the microphone, could record whatever was coming right off the radio. And people would just kind of start it up, and you would catch this little 3-minute slice of time, sometimes interrupted at the beginning and end, not quite, you know, the whole of the program, but just this little 3-minute segment. And I bought this stack of recordings for next to nothing. I mean, like 10 or 20 cents a piece, you know, for this huge stack. And I started transferring them digitally into a computer. And I have a program that will actually, when prompted, you can individually go through and knock out clicks and pops in the recording. So I got rid of the majority of those and then tried to diminish some of the surface noise as best I could. And then started listening to the recordings and going through with my best history books, trying to sort out exactly what they're talking about and when they were, and assembled these things into a continuum, which starts on disc 1, on CD 1 of mine. I've got a recording of Ed Morrow, the American broadcaster, waiting for Hitler to enter Austria on March 11th, 1938, a pivotal point in the beginning of World War II.
This is Edward Morrow speaking from Vienna. It's now nearly 2:30 in the morning, and Herr Hitler has not yet arrived. No one seems to know just when he will get here, but most people expect him sometime after 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's of course obvious after one glance at Vienna that a tremendous reception is being prepared. And we're planning to bring you an eyewitness account of Herr Hitler's entry into Vienna sometime tomorrow. We return you now to America.
And then the disc set runs all the way up through the recording that was cobbled together from about 7 different sources of the surrender ceremonies on the USS Missouri on September 2nd, 1945, when it was the war was truly over in the Pacific. Once I put this disc set out there and started offering it up to other collectors and selling copies, I actually had another record collector in Houston contact me, and he says, well, I was fascinated with your set. I'm interested in getting a copy of them. I have a bunch of these discs myself. Would you be interested in them? And I just sent him a copy of my discs, and he sent me the original acetates of his. And once I added his into it, it became a 7-hour set. 7 CDs worth of this material, covering virtually all the major stories of World War II in these little snatches. And the thing I like about these best is when we hear those little bits of audio from World War II being put back at us in history programs and on television programs. You'll have something like a 10-minute address by Winston Churchill, and for the sake of the media, it's been condensed into its best 18 seconds. These little recordings let you hear that 18 seconds in the context of a greater piece. You know, a 4-minute piece, and it's rolling along, and you, wow, I've never heard this, and then there's that phrase that you've heard so many times, and then it rolls along and rolls along and rolls along. That, to me, is really fascinating, because that is rather akin to picking up a newspaper talking about that event, as opposed to reading 2 lines about it in a history book.
And I must talk about the Pearl Harbor material, which you sent me, because the Pearl Harbor material is also very eerie as well, because obviously it's a very climactic moment in American history, but also the fact that this person was listening to it and physically recorded not only the broadcast, but somehow the air and the atmosphere in his room in America at that time. There's something more than just those classic kind of recordings you can buy or you can listen to of news reports. There's something about these type of recordings that capture something a little bit more.
Yeah, you get the impression of somebody happened to have a book of blank recordings, because once you use these things, you can't record over them. It's not like cassette tapes, folks. It's these were one-time affairs. Once you've committed the needle and you've started it doing that spiral scratch toward the center, it's committed. And somebody had this big box of blanks, and they started recording bulletins as they saw their world changing.
It's a long one down to around the 3-yard line. Ward Cup takes it. He's cutting up to his left. He's over the 10. Nice block there by Lehman. Cup still going. He's up to the 25. And now he's hit hard about the 27-yard line. Bruiser Kennard made the tackle. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
Here is what has happened. President Roosevelt phoned Secretary Early half an hour ago that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, the United States naval base on Oahu Island in the Hawaiian Islands. This means that war is underway between Japan and the United States.
Because after several years of hearing the war on the shortwave radio as something that was distant and was thousands of miles away, and maybe we can avoid being involved in it, that one terrible day of December 7th, 1941, America found itself in the thick of it. A very similar circumstance to what we found ourselves in on September 11th. I mean, it was when I came to September 11th, that terrible morning, I suddenly knew exactly what it must have been like on December 7th, the helpless feeling, although this person actually had the wherewithal to slam a couple discs in and say, I'm going to save this for some reason. Am I saving this for my children? Am I saving this because I think it's important and I want the neighbors to hear it? I don't know. But they were saved.
There's no confirmation at this time that the Japanese have sunk 2 American battleships and several American destroyers. The Japanese, according to another unofficial report, are said to have inflicted heavy damage on 300 American airplanes at Pearl Harbor. It is not known how many American planes were lost, although the damage is said to have been heavy. I repeat, there has been no confirmation of these reports. New York. According to the Berlin radio heard by shortwave monitors in New York City tonight, a big naval engagement between Japanese and Anglo-American fleets has been announced by Tokyo. The Berlin quote from Tokyo, which claimed hitting 3 American warships and sinking the American battleship West Virginia, is still in the unconfirmed stage. Los Angeles. G-men right now are staging a series of raids in the Los Angeles area, rounding up Japanese aliens. New York. Bert Silent, the NBC reporter in Manila, reported by telephone a few moments ago that the Pan-American Air Base at Guam has been bombed. The extent of the damage is not known.
The ones that I think are really interesting is there's a bit of a recording of Eleanor Roosevelt had a weekly program, and she changes her program that day. It's the afternoon of December 7th, and she changes her topic to talk about this war. Now, she's on the radio before her husband is. We haven't heard from the president yet, and we're already hearing from the First Lady. And then the recordings that I find the most fascinating are from a radio station which appears to be the source of the majority of these recordings anyway, and that is KIRO, which is in Seattle, Washington. And those recordings have the announcer, and in 1941 the announcers were very scripted. They knew exactly what they were going to do. Everything was very calm. Everything was very organized. And the evening of December 7th threw everything into a hat. I mean, they were having to think on their feet. And they're describing this new situation of blacking out the entire west coast of America. Blacking it out from up towards Vancouver, Canada, the northernmost point of Washington, all the way down to San Diego and beyond, and giving you instructions on how to black out your house so that the Japanese, who presumably will be flying over in bombers at any moment, won't be able to spot the cities. And then the station signs off. And that, to me, is a pretty amazing moment, because they had known that the Japanese bombers at Pearl Harbor had honed in on the radio station's signal, and he'd used that as a device, a navigation device. So they were signing off the radio stations and blacking out the lights.
There will be no radio broadcasting tonight after 7 o'clock, except perhaps for one of the Seattle stations, which will probably be KIRO. Leave your dial tuned to KIRO, and you'll get the information that is necessary. There will be a complete blackout tonight at 11 o'clock. That blackout is not only for the city of Seattle, it includes every light between the California border, or rather the Mexican border, and the Canadian border. That is in the states of Oregon, Washington, and California. Every farmhouse, every light of any kind in that area must be out by 11 o'clock. To test your blackout, you will have plenty of time between the hours of 7 and 11, between now and 11 o'clock, to make arrangements to get heavy black paper to seal your windows, or heavy drapes, or something, and by going outside with your lights on, you can check before the hour set to see that you are completely blacked out. It's advised that all persons remain indoors during the blackout, except those who have legitimate business and who are concerned in the air raid precautions and so forth, who have legitimate business outside the regular blackout. Maury, did you have something to say?
Just to add to what you said, Jack, is this. Please do not use the telephone more than necessary, because you do block the lines of communication. We must keep them clean. Do not call your radio stations or your other sources of information regarding the blackout. It has been ordered. Therefore, we must take it in the best faith that we possibly can. Remain calm. Stay in your home. You can leave your radio on and get all the information that you need to from KIRO. It's almost 7 o'clock, 5 seconds to go, and we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, with information when ordered by the United States Army Interceptor Command here in Seattle.
I've never heard a recording like that before, and I was just contacted by KIROs going through their 75th anniversary, and they said they had been searching for those recordings for years, and they've just gotten them this week. Some amazing stuff there from World War II, and just captured right off the radio on these little bits of paper and plastic. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more home recording discs tonight on The Lost Tapes.
George Gimarc on The Lost Tapes.
When the lives of thousands of Americans were threatened by exploding fuel tanks in automobiles, 12 ordinary people answered the call and stood up for our rights. 12 ordinary people, one jury. When government failed to protect the lives of millions of Americans threatened by asbestos poisoning, 12 ordinary people answered the call. 12 ordinary people, one jury. When thousands of women were threatened by unsafe birth control devices, 12 answered the call. 12 ordinary people, one jury. And when thousands of our children slept in unsafe, flammable pajamas, 12 answered the call and stood up for our children's rights and safety. When corporations calculate profits over safety and government fails to protect us, we rely on the common sense and fairness of 12 ordinary people. When you're called for jury duty, answer the call. Stand up for the rights of all Texans. One jury, 12 ordinary people can make all the difference in the world. This message is brought to you from Alert, Texas.
Something special for all the early morning insomniac listeners of KRLD. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday morning at 3 to hear the entertaining and informative hour with Dr. Harvey Davison. This program offers expert advice on how modern psychology, professional hypnosis, innovative medications can change your life. For over 30 years, the Davison Clinic has treated a variety of psychological conditions, such as smoking cessation and the tobacco-nicotine-related conditions, permanent weight loss, eating disorders, attention deficit disorders for children, adolescents, and adults. Plus, the Davison group of specialists are becoming renowned for eliminating addictions of prescriptions and street drugs as well as alcohol. The Davison Clinic charges on a per-session basis with no large upfront fee. Many severe problems are solved by the Davison method of hypnosis in just one in-depth session. The Davison Clinic telephones are answered 24 hours each day and by calling 972-480-0000, asking the person qualified to help you by telephone. Remember the solution number, 972-480-0000. Call anytime for an appointment toward mastering problems and changing your life.
Alex Rodriguez of the Texas Rangers talks about the Boys and Girls Clubs.
When I was 9, my mom had to work 2 full-time jobs to keep our family together. She didn't get home till 11. The streets were there, but for my sake, so was the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club is a positive place for kids to go every day after school, to do homework, make friends, and play ball.
Eddie Rodriguez ran the Boys and Girls Club in my neighborhood, and he still does today. He taught me to believe in myself, to be positive, stay grounded, and to keep my eye on the ball. I still come back to train at the Boys and Girls Club with Eddie. He's like a father to me.
There are more than 3,000 Boys and Girls Clubs where caring people like Eddie are helping our kids succeed.
Does it work? It did for me. Support the Boys and Girls Clubs, the positive place for kids.
Call 1-800-854-CLUB.
The source for breaking news, all day. KRLD.
It's The Lost Tapes, and we're back with some really astounding
home recording discs this time that Alan has dug up. Now, Alan, you would think that most people would be thrilled to know that these discs had come to light, that they had cut years ago, but not so, huh?
Some people aren't particularly happy that these records have survived. You know, we're talking about the editing process. It's funny because I was talking to a chap just today who I've traced, who is on a recording, a home recording made by, of all people, Jack Kerouac. Now, Jack Kerouac and John Cleland Holmes were good buddies. John Cleland Holmes was another, well, I actually wrote the first beat book called Go. I think it predates the first Kerouac book by 2 years or so. And they were good buddies with an English chap who was whose good friend owned a home recording kit. And this English chap actually went to school with Jack Kerouac. And John Cleland Holmes made about 20 recordio discs of them reciting poetry to jazz music off the radio. A few readings of some early scripts. And just fooling about, young guys fooling about.
The recordings, they offer us a glimpse of the beats before beats. Young men fooling, philosophizing, and hanging out, all on a recordio. The disc forgotten, only resurfacing years later in the archives of Kent State University.
Put it up! Yet on the Saturday afternoons, when the huge crowds were in the stadium bowls, and the ocean roar of their jubilation was carried on radios all over America in October, when the batteries of newsreel cameras were suddenly, mysteriously there, high atop the press box, like the very birds of the Andes come to gape at pure oars. One sentence. When the press boxes themselves tickety-tack with unsuppressible excitement, and men trained field glasses on the battered plain below, as if they were glad, agitated generals of war. And when, in the closing moments of the final period, which are almost always accompanied by some giant reddish sad dust, that was like farewell.
Incredible collection, recordio discs. Again, you know, these guys were fooling around. Little did they know they would become such institutions in American sort of literary circles.
And that they would engage in something as bourgeois as recordios.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, you know, everyone did it, but recordios were a bit more bourgeois than the coin-operated machine.
Leave it right where you've got it. You've got it on the Lost Tapes, here on the Texas State Network.
George Gimarc, Lost Tapes. Here's a new spin. 0% APR financing for qualified buyers on every 2003 Chevy. The new ones. Get in for 0% APR for qualified buyers on the full line of Chevy
store or in your own home up to a month. Now, through October, Select Comfort's going to be donating Sleep Number beds to the Ronald McDonald houses where families of ill children can stay. The more beds they sell, the more they give away. So stop in this month, mention my name, Brad Barton, and then check out the new enhanced top-of-the-line Sleep Number bed. A dozen Sleep Number stores at malls in the Metroplex, including Vista Ridge, Stonebriar, and select Bed Bath & Beyond stores. Sleep Number by Select Comfort.
All news all day, plus traffic every 10 minutes on the 8s. News Radio 1080 KRLD.
The Lost Tapes, and we've got a little bit of time here, and I want to play some of the other great bits that have turned up on home recording discs. And this is one that was floating around in the collectors community for a while that I don't know if you've ever heard of. This is Jonathan Winters from about 1962, and it's Jonathan Winters in between sessions doing commercials, just kind of going off on a tangent and coming up with a comedy bit that I don't know if he ever did this in the clubs or not, but it's not on any of his albums. Get an earful.
For the women out there who are listening in at our noontime program, it's now 1:03. And our next platter is Roy Bean and the Beaneries. Let's give it a listen. Yes, Roy, you goofed on the friggin'... Oh, I'm sorry. Friends, we don't have that record with us this afternoon, but a guy just stepped in here. Tony Burlow, one of the all-time great singers, has a new record out called Fancy Fuzzies. How's it going with you?
Crazy, man. Like, I've been pressing a lot of things, and I've been flipping over your show, man. It's too much. I mean, like, you come on like steel balls and a steel strike in Pittsburgh.
What kind of a kick are you on? There's right up in the paper here that you were a narcotic.
Yeah, man, but like I take it in the back and scratch wrists, you know? Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you heard it, boys and girls out there. Instead of exchanging those silly little baseball cards or hearts for Valentine's Day, be a poppy pal. And this year, wear the real ones. Huh? Okay, kids. And here's for all our little poppy pals who sent in those dope letters. Here's a little thing entitled, Swingin' All the Way. I dig my parents on Parents' Day, 'cause we swing all the way. Hit it, kid. Let's pick up the music. You like it, Bob?
Yeah, man, like everybody moves.
Elvis is back. Good boy. Runner of World War V. Elvis, how you feel?
Jesus, I never felt better. That's Marmy, boy, like to beat this.
Watch, we're on the air, Elvis. Hey, come on. What'd you do over in Germany?
I told them Krauts, by God, I was one of the king rock and rollers, and I told my lieutenant and the general and everything. I told them to kiss my elbow.
Well, Elvis, I'm sorry. I see your language is still limited.
That's right. I don't care. I got $5 million. Yeah.
Well, you'll never record for Capitol.
I don't care. I got Moon Company. I put $7. He's an idiot.
The great Jonathan Winters on one of those little home accordio discs. And let me just play some music to get us up to the top of the hour. This is another one of those great sounds that you catch from time to time. I have no idea who this girl is, but she's pretty good. Hey,
I wonder who's kissing him now. I wonder who's teaching him how.
Got it. You've got it on the Lost Tapes here on the Texas State Network.
I wonder.
Here's John Whitehead.
One day after the September 11 terrorist attacks on our nation, President Bush vowed, "We will not allow this enemy to win the war."
Wherever you go, we're your musical host. So take a lively companion. Wherever you go, take a portable radio. Take a portable radio.
It's the Lost Tapes. George Gimarc here, along with Alan Dean from the BBC, and we're talking about home recording discs tonight, and we've heard a bunch of stuff from many different eras, and I wanted to make sure you heard some not only from the U.S., but some from England as well, because they're quite different, and the sort of stuff that we've been picking up and putting in our own collections reflects those differences quite vividly. Alan, you've got some that have turned up that are special to you. Let's hear one of them.
Let's find if I've got a right. Now, Michael, I want you to be a good boy while I'm away up in London. Now, I want you to do some drawing and not worry your mummy too much. And don't knock people about. They're always knocking Barbara about and other people. Now, don't do that. As a good boy. And don't worry your mummy too much. Now, I want to talk to mummy now. Hello, Sonny. Now, how do you like my voice? Don't you think it sounds nicely? Now, what can I say? I am the voice of 1,000,000 men, and I wrote my song for you. I might have stayed and sung and played as others
scheme to do it. What do you think of that now? Isn't that good? I'll buy now.
That's amazing, Alan. That's amazing.
I am the voice of a million men. Incredible, isn't it?
That's great. What was the circumstance of that one, or do you know?
Yeah, that was, I actually spoke to the person who sent the record in. That person now is 70, and he is the little boy that's referred to who shouldn't be knocking his little sister about. And that was his father, who was away on work duties. I think he was a car salesman or a rep. And he found one of these machines and made a disc and a recording and sent it back home. But they were from Swansea, the family, so you can sense a bit of the Welsh accent there. I think in a way my real fascination is the coin-operated machine, because there's something completely egalitarian about them. They offer everybody. No one could say they can't afford to put 10 cents, 25 cents, whatever it is, into a slot. Anybody, but anybody could make a record. And I think that is what's so amazing about those machines, and the fact that, you could make the record at the end of a pier, in a train station, in an amusement arcade, and you could walk away with a record, and anybody could do it, and they are really, and technique and technology is out the window. This is the rawest sound you could virtually, make, and I think those discs are the creme de la creme in a way. Obviously, 90% of them most probably don't have much significance.